Hi guys, we're going to be chatting to the amazing Celia Rees tonight, author of these fantastic Point Horror Unleashed. I'm really excited because I've been a fan of Celia for so many years, since Point Horror Unleashed and beyond. So I'm going to add Celia in and then we'll have a good old chat about horror. Our favourite subject. So I just had Celia in, hopefully it will work and there's no little gremlins in the system tonight. Hello everybody. Let's see if it works. Let me Celia. I can know Celia's in the chat, I can see her. Let's try again. There we go. Try again. Is this going to work? Hi, Celia.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm good.
Oh, brilliant. Can you hear me okay?
I can if I take you.
Yeah. Yeah. No problem.
It's okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. All
Okay,
good.
good. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
oh,
It's yeah. My phone sort of died and it's a bit dark in here, but
oh, that's all right. Oh, thanks for
no,
joining us. I've been
it's
so
brilliant.
excited to
Relax.
chat to you.
Okay. Yeah. I'm all set. All
All
set.
set,
Yeah. Yeah.
excellent. And we've got a few people in the comments as well, so I'll try and read some out. If you have got questions for Celia, there's like a little Q&A box. Pop them in there, and I'll have a little try and put them up on the screen at some
I'm trying
point.
to do something about the light. Hang on.
Let there be light.
That's a bit better.
Ooh, that's giving
Yeah.
you like a spooky effect.
Yeah. I like. Yeah. Let's leave it with the spooky
I
effect.
like
Yeah.
that. Oh, lots of people saying hello to you as well. So
Hi.
yeah.
Hi.
So this, if you don't know already, this is the amazing Celia Rees, who has written over 20 novels. She's written in many different genres, from gritty realism, ghost stories, horror, and then historical fiction as well. So you've got a wide range of books out there. And I think your books have been translated into like 28 languages. You've been up for numerous awards, Celia. It's just an amazing back catalogue of books that you've got and that you've
Yeah.
written. So it's just so amazing. Yeah, so I think as well, your the one that was released a couple of years ago now, or last year, was from an old family like cookery book that you found, and then you based the novel around that, which was Miss
Yeah.
Graham's War.
That's it. You're
It's
right. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
sounds
Okay. Yeah.
brilliant. And obviously back in the 90s, Celia wrote some books for the Point Horror Unleashed series, which were like gritty and dark YA horror. And at the moment for the book club, we're reading The Vanished, which
Okay.
I'm absolutely loving. And then there was also Blood Sinister
Yeah.
and The Cunning Man, which have had different covers over the
They
years as well.
they have. They have
Yeah,
indeed.
amazing.
It started off with the real Point Horror Unleashed had Point Horror American Point Horror style covers,
Mm.
which I absolutely loved. All the people who wrote for Point Horror Unleashed loved it. They loved like Blood Sinister. It's got, it looks like Tom Cruise with big teeth. It's fabulous. And The Vanished, the creepiest picture.
Mm.
The editor who found this said it really creeped her out.
It
You
creeps
know,
me out
the
on the
cunning
shelf.
man, you've got these hands coming at you, and
Mm.
we just loved them. But then they kind of stopped the Point Horror Unleashed series, and so it went into Scholastic's normal books. So then they changed the covers to be a bit more tasteful. But
Mm.
they weren't tasteful in horror. You don't want that, do
We
you?
don't want. We want the
Yeah,
creepiness.
you want creepy, you want a real kind of, yeah. And I loved the old covers. In fact, I loved writing for Unleashed. It was just one of my best writing times,
Yeah.
really. I loved it. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. amazing. And I've been lucky enough to speak to Anne Finnis
Oh, right.
before,
Yeah.
and I proper fangirled when I met her once at a
Yeah. Yeah.
convention, and I got introduced, and I was like, "You were my childhood," because she brought so many good books
Yeah.
over
She,
to
she
the
was
UK.
she was the overall editor, and my editor was we worked under her, and I think for I think it was The Vanished. We I They didn't like the title. I can't remember what the title I thought of was. So we were just sent off by Anne Finnis into a room and like come up with a title. So we kept thinking of something and then going and talking to her, and she, no, that's no good. So good. She had a real nose for horror. She's brilliant. She was a
Mm,
great editor. So she'd know, no, spook it up. That's not, no, cut that bit out. You got to get something that's really, come on, edge of the seat stuff.
mm.
I want to be hiding behind the door. So yeah, she was a brilliant editor.
Yeah, she's amazing, and I think she was working at Usborne last time I spoke to her. So yeah, so she's bringing some creepiness to there.
Yeah, we kind of people move around and go to different
Yeah,
places, but yeah.
yeah. Oh, amazing. Larissa has put that she really enjoyed Witch Child.
Oh, that's nice. I just saw that flash up. I can't
Yeah,
talk and look at the things, but yeah,
that's okay.
that's really good to know. That's nice to know. Thank you. Thank you very much for saying that.
And Eddie May's put reading my first book by you, Celia, The Vanished, and I am loving
Oh,
it.
that's
Um,
great. That's wonderful. In
yeah.
fact, I reread it over the weekend because I wrote it a long, long time ago. And although I can remember what I remember most to where the idea came from and the research and thinking about it, rather than the actual events in the book and the characters. And I actually think myself, well, this is really good.
Oh,
And I don't always think that. Yeah, no, it was. I really. Yeah, it's a nice book. It's a good book. It's
oh, I like that. So,
creepy. Yeah.
without spoilers, then, so where did the idea come from for The Vanished?
Well, and it's not really a spoiler because as soon as you start to read it, you know where you are. I was a teacher. I taught in Coventry, so the city is in fact Coventry. Very,
Oh,
very similar to.
that's where I live,
Really?
Coventry.
Well,
Yeah.
that is it. It is Coventry, and
Oh,
I
wow.
can tell you exactly where all the places are.
Oh.
There's some changes of names, so I changed Swanswell, which is a lake. It's in the middle of Coventry, to Brideswell, and I changed some of the names of the streets and things, but the history behind it, which when you read in a bit, somebody explains the history, is Coventry because it's a very ancient
Mm.
city. It's 1,000 years old. So if you've got 1,000 years of history, you're going to get ghosts because ghosts and spirits and hauntings are always attached to place. And
Mm.
often history isn't far from the ghost story, like M.R. James, who's one of the great ghost story writers, said. It's always comes from something. It has to come from something. And I was a teacher. I taught in various schools in Coventry, and every school I taught at, even Binley Park, which isn't there anymore, but it was a modern school. It was all new,
Mm.
but it had spooky. They all had spooky stories attached to it. And that one, there was a patch in the there was a new sports hall, and there was a patch on the floor where no matter what generation of kids it was, they would never sit on that patch. So they all came in, and they always avoided this. It was like black marks on the floor, and they never, even if people said move along, no, they would not sit there. And the story was that it was a big trampolining school, and a girl had gone off the trampoline and hit the floor and split her head open, and blood had gone everywhere, and that's the marks on the floor with the blood, and
Ooh.
died, and she haunted the sports
Ooh.
hall, and it was there was no record of any accidents like that, but every kid in the school believed it. New ones coming in knew the story and believed it, and there was once it was used sometimes for exams, and the lights all went out, and there was hardly any light. It was just lights at the top, and there was dead silence, and then it's like panicking started, like turn the lights back on.
That would
Yeah,
be me.
it was. it was so. I taught in other schools, and every school had some sort of ghost stories, spooky stories. And there's a school in Coventry called Camden Court School,
Oh yeah.
and it's a big. It is exactly. It is actually that school in the book. It's exactly.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and it's a big old house, and it has a famous ghost story, like a story that's in like true ghost story magazines, Haunted Coventry. You'll
Mm.
find the story about Camden Court School,
Mm.
and I included verbatim one of the actual stories from one of the Haunted Coventry books,
Oh wow.
where a teacher had said it was, and this is true about ghosts and ghost stories. She was in the school, like there's a foyer and big stairs going up into the upper part of the house where the head's office was, and a portrait on the wall of George Singer, who he was a kind of bicycle millionaire, and because Coventry used to manufacture bicycles, and
Mm.
um, and she saw, I mean, she was there late, like kind of in the after a parents' evening. There was no one there. Everyone, she was sort of locking up, and she saw a man coming down the stairs. And all she thought was, and this is another thing about ghosts, she thought it was maybe a parent of one of the children, but he looked too old, really, and
Mm.
also he's dressed in very old-fashioned clothes. And then, in the moment it said that she looked away and looked back, he wasn't there. And
Oh.
it was, and he looked exactly like the portrait, which is in another part of the school. And yeah, so and that is like that's a really good story. So
Yeah.
I knew there was that story, um and I taught in another school called Whitley Abbey School, which had a big a big house there, but it had been knocked down. But there were and there was it being replaced by a teaching block, and again there were stories about that a girl had thrown herself out of one of the windows of this big house and been killed, and she haunted the school at
Mm.
night. And also, like everywhere in Coventry, there were nunneries and monasteries, and so they were the people who'd seen a nun and the white nun, and all these things. And in the woods, and again this is in the book, in the woods there's a big Whitley Abbey School backs onto the common, the old common,
Mm.
and it's quite forested. And also there were, I mean, they planted trees, but there was natural trees behind that. It's a big woodland area. So kids used to go in there, and they were, do not go in the woods. Of course, they all went in, and that's where in the book there's a legend of the 7 steps. And that was exactly the Whitley Abbey. The kids used to go looking for these 7 steps, and that story is if you got down to the bottom, then and you stepped on the bottom step, you disappeared, and
Oh.
and it was so they would talk seriously about, well, I'd jump over it, I wouldn't step on, and there'd be long discussions in class about what you'd do if you got to the bottom or found them or anything, and for want of something better to do, sometimes I would tell them scary stories. I like telling scary stories, obviously, and so
Yeah.
I tell these because instead of doing drama, which I didn't like teaching drama, so I'd tell them these terrifying stories, and they would be. It didn't matter who they were; they would all be quiet, and um, and then I asked them to tell me stories, tell us stories, and they would ask your parents, ask your grandparents, and they'd all come up with these amazing local ghost stories, and it was just wonderful. So I used all that I got when I was teaching, because I wasn't writing now, I was just
Mm.
teaching, but I remembered all these stories about the school and the woods and all this stuff. So I thought, I'd written Blood Sinister, so I wanted me to come up with another one. And I was teaching in a college, in Henley College in Coventry, and I went on a visit with some students to Camden Court, and I thought, and I'd never been there.
Yeah.
And when I went in, I thought, oh, this is it. I've got to write about this place. It's got to be a haunted school. It has to be. And so that's how it started.
Oh, that's so amazing. And I noticed the dedication in the Vanish. You dedicated it to all the Coventry students, and thanks for all the stories they told. So that's amazing to hear, like, the actual real life behind that
Yeah. Yeah.
dedication
I
as well.
some of the stories in it are stories that kids told me, and we were swapping stories. And when I was at Henley, there were two boys in the class, in one of my classes, who had been to Camden Court School, and they were the ones who came up with the one about, like, they were sitting outside the head office was at the top of the school. They were naughty boys. They were sitting outside the head's office. One of them said there was this, like, it was like a mist creeping towards us, and we were bricking it. We were bricking it. So we were like, they don't care about the head, and they scarpered. They went down the stairs. They didn't wait for the head to call them in. And he said, and it's true. And that, and then they came up with this story about what had happened at the top of the school, and it's just, yeah. I mean, it's such a rich resource.
Oh,
It was great. And actually, those two boys are in the book.
oh,
They're two lads that at the beginning of the book, they're working with the main character Cassie and her and Fred,
oh,
new
the
boy.
one with the
The
checkered shirts.
other,
Yes.
yeah, Todd and Warren, and I think they were one of them. I think they were called Todd and Warren. And they were exactly like that. One of them was huge, and the other one was like skinny. And yeah, and I thought, put you two in it.
Oh,
And they
I
were
love
exactly
that.
like that. I got them the characters that they were a gift, a
Oh,
gift.
that's amazing. I love that. Oh dear. There's a few comments. Carla's put, I remember being a teenager sat in the park reading The Vanished while my little sisters played on the swings. I was just so gripped and uninterested in anything other than that story.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing. John's put, amazing to see Celia, so rare to get to speak and hear from a point horror author. Um, and he asked, have you read any of the US point horror before writing these
yeah,
titles?
yeah, yeah. Because I was like a teacher, and I was interested in what students. That's how I started writing originally. I was interested in what they liked to read, and they liked American books. They liked point horror, and they liked American crime thrillers,
Mm,
and they were very different from anything that was being written in Britain. And because they were kind of like, they were like real. Like teenagers who led a real almost adult life. They drove cars, and they went
yeah.
to the beach, and they went to football games, and they did all this stuff that were beyond the dreams of most Coventry teenagers. And they absolutely loved these books, and they just disappeared. Because they weren't in our school library, because
Mm,
they weren't allowed to be in there, but we were allowed to have book boxes in class. And so the teachers selected the books, we bought them and put them in the book box, and all of them just immediately disappeared.
oh,
And
yeah.
we did all the boring ones, and all the ones that they really liked just went. And you'd have to have moratoriums, and they'd all come back, and they'd all be dog-eared and covered in Coca-Cola stains. But yeah, so I knew, and I had read some of them. I didn't read all
Mm,
of them, because they tend to be a bit formulaic. But once you
mm,
see the formula, but they're good. I mean, they were good. They were good stories, well
yeah.
told, and really great teen characters who were doing
Mm,
stuff. And I just
mm.
thought, right, okay, well, I could have a go, because my class started complaining, because I stopped them writing books about driving cars and going to football matches, right? Like not soccer matches, American football, because they didn't know anything about it. Well, why write about it? You don't know anything about it. So they said, but nobody writes books like that for us. They
Mm,
only write, they don't write about us. And I said, well, okay, well, I thought, well, what if somebody did write about you then? So that's how I started. And they were the gift that kept giving the students.
yeah.
all of my
Sounds.
all of my books from that era are scattered with kids I'd taught, really.
I wonder if they read them now and they're like,
They,
oh,
they,
that's
they
me.
yeah, I mean, one of them, actually grew up to be. He was a teacher, and I'd gone to a convention, he was like a local teacher, so I was talking to him about reading, and he was sitting on a table swinging his legs, and I just said, Jason Henderson, get off that table now. And he went, what? He was a head of a junior school, but he still jumped off the table.
Oh, I love that. I think I would still do that if certain teachers of mine like arrived like somewhere. I'd be like, yes,
He was like,
sir.
oh wow, no, it was really, really nice to get to be in touch with some of them. But
Oh, that's
I don't think they all know they're in the books, but that's the danger of being
secret.
friends, but knowing a writer, because people say to me, you ought to put me in a book, and I thought, how do you know I haven't?
I like that. Oh, if any of my friends say that to me now, I'm going to be like, which one am I? Oh, Sharon's put her school had a haunted girl story. She hung
Exactly.
herself in the gym. Yeah, every school seems to
Well,
have
every school,
something.
I bet you, everybody who's listening now, think about it. Think about what your haunted school, every school. When I was at junior school, it was the toilet,
Yeah.
haunted toilet. It was, I mean, it was pretty awful anyway. So, you'd avoid that if you possibly could.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there was a few at ours. I think there was a haunted classroom or something like that. Um, Dawn, who writes absolutely brilliant horror. I really highly recommend Dawn's books. She wrote The Creeper Man. And yeah, amazing stories. And she's put school ghost stories are always the best. Yeah, they are. You
Absolutely.
can't
They're
beat it.
brilliant. They are
Yeah.
brilliant. And because kids are so inventive, and they tell such brilliant stories, and they believe it. I mean, once you get inside their world, they don't tell people normally, but once you get inside, they trust you. They tell you these most astonishing stories. And yeah,
Yeah.
I was fascinated by them.
Yeah, I know when I was younger, my brother, he was fascinated in like urban legends and things. So he used to terrify me because he was older than me. So he used to terrify me with all these stories. So if we'd go on like a family outing, he'd like tell me, oh, that tower up there, that's haunted. The Grey Lady lives up there. So it just, every family outing, I was always like crying or scared or something
Well,
because my brother, terrible.
it sounds as though your brother and my brother are very similar, because my brother that's how I start, like one of your questions, when you start reading horror,
Mm.
and he had the Pan Book of Horrors. I don't know if you remember, you won't remember them, or even maybe even know them. But they were called the Pan Book of Horrors, I think, and there was a whole
Mm.
series of them, but they were Edgar Allan Poe stories and things like that, and they were
Yeah.
classic stories, but they had like really, really kind of scary covers, and he used to keep them under his bed because I wasn't supposed to read them. So I used to creep into his room when he wasn't there and get them and terrify the witch. I was terrified the pants off myself. Really, really scared. I never,
Yeah.
ever.
Brothers have got a lot to answer
Yes,
for.
they do.
Karen's asked, where did the step, so the step that you mentioned, send people to? Like, what was the legend of that?
Well, we don't know.
Oh,
They just disappeared. And that's basically one of the basis of the inspiration for the book, because who knows where they went. So, yeah.
spooky. Melina's put, I love that you're a ghost story collector too, Celia. Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. I just love, I love stories that people tell you, and all of the books, not really Blood Sinister. That's got a different story behind it, but The Cunning Man and The Vanished are based on folklore and told tales, really.
Yeah, and as Dawn's put, it's really refreshing as well to read about a sixth form and Duke of Edinburgh award. So there's some American followers in the chat. So Duke of Edinburgh is like an award that you can do. I think my son did like bronze, and you go camping and do volunteering and things. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see that element in the book as
Yeah,
well from the 90s.
in the yes, it's a kind of. I mean, when I was reading it, I could see that there's differences, but it's it's like all that sort of the minutiae of school life, the photocopier that doesn't work, or you haven't got it runs out of paper, and the and shared computers that keep going wrong, or and it was, I mean, it certainly wasn't high tech as it is now, although but there were computers and things. And yeah, and I know, I mean, obviously I'd been in schools and knew the life of them, and the school secretary who's really snotty, and always
It's
always
always.
always got like brown court shoes and a cardigan.
And I think I was chatting to I can only think of his handle, Teddy. His handle is, and he said to me, "I'm sure Celia used to teach my mom when she was at school, so I'll have to find out who that is in
Very
case she's in one of the
possibly,
books."
very possibly, yeah.
Speedway Chick said, "Seeing teachers as an adult is an interesting experience." When you said that you bumped into one of your old students who was a teacher,
Yeah. It is
yeah.
strange. Yes, it was.
And Dawn said, "Shelley, you sure will end up in one of my books." Of Dawn, yeah, just kill me off in the first chapter, Dawn, because I would never survive a horror film. We all know this.
Yeah, well, maybe I've put the idea into somebody's head now, so you could be in debt.
That's it. I'll be like bumped off in everyone's books now. um, oh, Shaman's put, "I was the one scaring my sisters." Yeah, see,
Yeah,
we all
it's
had someone who
all.
scared us.
I used to scare my daughter because she liked, I mean, she liked spooky stories, and to when like on holiday, when it's boring or you're walking, she didn't like walking long distances, like, and we'd always seem to choose a beach that you had to go over about 10 cliffs to get to. And I tell her, I mean, I would tell her like Stephen King stories, the Candyman, anything I could think of, and she so I've never ever got over that. I still dream about that. And then and then we'd watch films together. Like we watched, I mean, Candyman was, because it's now got another
Mm,
Candyman coming, and that really she was absolutely spooked by that.
yeah,
She's
that
still pretty
to
spooked by
this
it.
day, like I always remember, like when I was younger in the 90s, and we were always dared to like stand in the mirror and say Candyman,
Yeah.
or Bloody Mary. You know, that was like the thing at sleepovers and stuff. Yeah. Dawn's put, "Celia, did your daughter read your books? What did she
Yes,
think?"
she did, and she thought they were pretty scary.
Mm.
She read all of them, and yeah, she particularly liked the point horrors, but she knew the background as well, about, because I would involve, well, like, because she couldn't get any choice of being involved, of going on trips to research things, and being dragged around places, and on with the cunning man, obviously it was seaside, so
Mm.
we went to Cornwall, and then I'd have always go to the Maritime Museum or talk to people, and then I'd tell her the stories that they'd told me.
Mm.
And yeah, she was involved in partly the oral storytelling, and so I'd talk about it, what happens, and yeah, so yeah, she's always been a supportive fan
Oh,
reader. Yeah,
oh, I love
a
that. That's
supportive.
really sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I should probably
Um,
dare say anything else, but yeah.
Dawn's put, "I'd never kill you off in the first chapter, as in me. I'd have to make you suffer first." Thanks, Dawn. Oh dear. Karen's put, "My brother faked his death 7 times over in the same way to me by flailing in his bed and wailing, 'Tell mum I love her,' before expiring dramatically, and I fell for it every time." Oh dear, I thought my brother was bad. So tell us a little bit about 90s, Celia. What was the 90s like for you?
Well, I gave up. I resigned I was at Whitley Abbey School, and I gave up teaching because I decided I wanted to write. and I got this really great idea for that, the novel I was talking about wanting to write. I didn't start writing horror straight away. I started with crime fiction. I like kind of thrillers. And a friend of mine who taught in Woodway Park told me a story about a group of, she'd been on an outdoor pursuits weekend, and they were going to this house in, I don't know if you know, like you remember Dolly Moch was like an outdoor pursuit centre in
okay.
they were going there all to, and I don't know if there's that one or another one, but they were going, and it was in the middle of nowhere, literally. And the police stopped them. They were in buses, and said, I wouldn't go there if I was you. She was telling me this story in the pub, and I was like, oh, why, what did they say that? Oh, because this guy had killed a girl. They're pretty sure that that it was him, and because this girl had been stalked by this guy. He reported him, and her body was found in the vestry of a church. She'd been stabbed to death, and they thought he was going back to the same place because he'd done things before, obviously not as bad as that, but done bad things. And he always went back to this house because it had been a home for disturbed children before it was bought by Coventry to turn it into an outdoor pursuit centre. So he was going to this place that he killed a teenage girl. She was going to a place with 2 busloads of teenagers that a killer was going to. And I thought, that's so good. It's such a great story. I got to write that because it was exactly what they've been talking about. An exciting story, but involving people like them. Well, there's a whole busload of them. So that class that had said that to me, I put them all in the book. They were all on the bus, all of them. So they were, you know, they were all there. So, and I thought, oh, I've got to do this. I've got to write. And there was a really spooky bit too, because she said they came back from doing whatever they do, and there was a chair in the middle of the hall and a note saying, I told you to lock all the doors and windows. And how did the police, it must be the policeman, but how did he get in? So she looked around, all around the whole bottom floor, and there was, in the room that they'd been using, and I think she might have been using it, she might have been sleeping in it, there was a French windows, and when she looked closely, all the paint was broken down the centre, and it didn't lock. So he'd got into the house while they were there. So that's creepy.
That is
scary.
creepy.
Scary. So I thought, no, such creep. I got to write it, you know. So I thought, and I, for various reasons, I was fed up with this particular job, and I thought, no, I'm going to resign and I'm going to dedicate myself to writing. That's what I'm going to do. And so I did. And that book was published, not straight away, but didn't take all that long. It took I started it in 1989, 90, and it was published in 1992.
What was that called, Celia?
It's called Every Step You Take. Because it's like the song, it's like a stalker guy, because he's there. I mean, in the book, he is there watching them, and yeah. So that's what I did. But I realised pretty quickly it was pretty hard to make a living out of this. So that's why I worked part time in the college and wrote and worked part time, and I wrote. I mean, then I could, and the books are much shorter than books are now. So I could write maybe 2 or even 3 books a year, as long as I wrote for different publishers, because you get 3 sets of advances. So I ended up writing thrillers for Macmillan, horror for Scholastic, and like younger spooky stories for Hodder. So I had, so it kept me really busy.
Yeah,
but
I bet.
So I spent the 90s writing lots of books, basically.
It sounds like you were super busy.
It was very busy. Yeah, busy time. And also not so much as later on, but I used to do school visits and festivals, and so you know there was it's quite busy, not just writing, there's lots of other things involved with being a writer. So I remember it being a very busy time, lots of fun, like because Yeah, I lots of fun with some of the publishers and the editors and the publicity people and other authors. I met all of the point horror people were great fun
Oh,
and really great,
wow.
a great laugh. And yeah, it was really quite a community.
Mm.
So not just the Unleashed, but the other Scholastic titles as well.
Yeah. So what's your favourite thing about writing horror? Is it just like purely just to scare people to death?
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah.
Scaring people is a real challenge, particularly young people.
Mm.
I don't know what because I haven't done it for a while, but I think there's something. Actually think there's something that is universal in fear,
Mm.
and it doesn't matter what era it is. If you get it right, then it will be scary.
Mm.
And yeah, I like scaring people.
Yeah.
That's what I liked about that. I like to scare them.
Yeah.
And,
We can tell,
they kind
Celia,
of,
we can tell.
yeah, like uneasy, make people uneasy. And the key to writing horror is not sort of is building the unease and like build up till it's almost excruciating, and then you have something happen. And
Mm.
it's that everybody's frightened of something.
Mm.
And often they're very similar things, and it's the unexpected as well, really, because I used to do a lot of school talks, and nearly always you're in the library. And so they'd be like, library, what's scary about the library? Nothing scary about the library. We're all sitting there on our little chairs, and I'm here, lights are on. And then I said, okay, so it put you here at night. For some reason, you've had to come back, and you're here at night. Now look, there's all these shelves, and what's behind the shelves? You don't know what's behind the shelves. It's dark. It's like, and so, and you get all these around it. No, she's right. It's pretty scary.
I'm just thinking back to my old library from my teen years, which was like an old swimming bath that had been converted into a library, and how spooky that would be
Exactly.
if I was stuck there at night.
And who knows what happened in the swimming baths either. I love old swimming baths. I actually, one of my Macmillan titles has a disused swimming bath in it. In fact,
Oh.
it's in Birmingham, Spark Brook, I think
Oh,
it is. And
okay, yeah.
yeah, disused swimming pool. Because I used to think, I never went in, but I thought, I bet that is about the scariest place you could possibly be
Oh,
in. And it was
yeah.
old-fashioned baths where they used to have like people who they'd have communal baths. So they'd have little cubicles with baths in, and like, oh, yeah,
That sounds
spooky.
like the one in Aston, in Birmingham, which I think they've just recently like renovated, or the last few years they renovated. But I remember seeing some pictures of it inside, and it just looked really spooky because obviously it had been let
Yeah,
go to go
yeah,
to a bit of ruin over the
exactly.
years. Yeah.
No, thing like that can be scary. And in fact, one of the schools, Binley Park, had a swimming pool, and it had obviously changing rooms. And I remember once being in there on my own swimming.
Mm.
I can't get out. I can't get out because I don't know what's in in the changing rooms. And
Just stay swimming
yeah,
forever.
I was terrified. So that sort of feeling is
Mm.
what I mean. I could put that. You've got to put that in the book, that you've experienced that kind of fear. Everybody has,
Mm.
and then you just put it. You put it in the book.
Mm. So is that what scares you then? Like, what's your most worst fear, I guess? Like, what's the most
Um.
thing that scares you the most?
Well, I'm not really frightened of snakes and spiders and things like that, but I think derelict and places like that, having to go in there on my own, I would be really scared.
Mm.
And actually, I don't like confined places. I don't like underground places. So
Mm.
in the Vanished, it's like that a lot of that is my things I don't like.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was doing a program. I mean, this years and years ago, there was a program about point horror, Unleashed, and we went to Coventry and to all the kind of underground tunnels there's a river that's culverted, it goes underneath the city, and I had to go like wading down this thing in
Oh,
Wellingtons,
oh.
and it was perilously to the top of the Wellington, which I wasn't too keen on anyway. And then they just turned, and he said, the producer said, "What are you really scared of?" "I'm scared of underground places in the dark. Is
This.
what I'm scared of. Like here, I was scared of being here." Yeah. So I don't like things like that. I start kind of freaking out a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd be the same. Mind you, I think I'm scared of most things, to be honest. But yeah, even though I like reading horror and watching horror, and things like that. But yeah, in real life, not so
Exactly. Yeah.
much.
It's that real life thing that you have to do. You've got to. I remember once probably the wisest thing anyone said, because when I used to talk to kids in school, say you get to talk to them, and they'd say, and one of them said, "You have to believe it, or it could happen, and it could happen to you, and that is the secret of it. The reader has to think this could happen." It has to be believable on it, no matter how weird it is. You've got to have created a belief, and then they've got to think, what if that happened to me? And then you've got them.
Yeah, no, 100%, definitely. Eddie's asked, Celia, what is your favourite scary horror movie? Do you watch horror movies or?
I don't watch a vast number. I don't know. I'm a bit of a wimp with horror, and
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of horror since I used to watch with my daughter, but we ended up in the hall, like the TV's in one room. We were in the hall hugging onto each other, and we thought maybe this is going a bit too far, this watching horror films. And my husband hates horror films, and I can't watch them on my own because
No.
so yeah, that's a difficulty. I think the Halloween series, the Halloween series, and even the spoofy ones,
Yeah.
which can be pretty scary.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember the title now. The one with it's set in like an American college, and I think that's a 90s film. I'll put it on your
Is it Scream? Yeah,
screen. Yeah,
that
and
is good.
it's got every cliche, but
Yeah.
you still think, no, don't go down to the basement to check out the noise in the basement. Do not do
Yeah.
that. And don't go into the scary bell tower.
No.
Yeah, like
Just don't
no,
go anywhere.
just
Just
don't go
stay safe.
anywhere. Yeah, and everybody who's there all watching a horror film, and everyone just one by one they get up and they can bumped off. No, I Scream is good.
Yeah, it was good the way that they did play on those, tropes and
Yeah,
things. It's
good.
such a classic.
Yeah,
Speedway Chick said yes, disused swimming pools are very creepy.
very, very creepy
Yeah.
indeed.
Oh, John's put there's a horror movie set in a swimming pool that's coming out in January.
Oh,
It's called Night Swim, and the trailer is horrible.
well,
Oh
yeah,
dear.
exactly. I mean, that's exactly my point. If you not go anywhere near a disused, or even a proper at night, I just wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like swimming or anything like that.
No,
Not
no.
certainly like there's so many echoing empty spaces around it, and the noise of the water, and yeah,
Just
it's
get a feeling of a
very
place,
creepy.
don't you?
But it's great for writing because you just build the atmosphere, and every
Yeah.
no, I don't think I'd like to be there, but you are because you're reading the book.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, you're sitting there reading it, so
Yeah, so
really, yeah, you're
yeah,
experiencing that fear and the feeling of it. Yeah. Karen's put my bestie sister told me gremlins come out of the bathroom plug, and to this day she's still scared of the bathroom plugs.
Bathrooms are another thing. Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. I think I can see that. I can believe that. In fact, one of the reasons I wrote Blood Sinister was I went to see the Dracula, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I thought, I've got to write a book about a vampire, just have to. And that's how I got into Point Horror Unleashed, because Macmillan didn't want to publish it, but my agent said, oh, I bet you Scholastic would like it, and they did. They thought it was a cracking idea, so that became my first Unleashed title. But I went back to when I was a teenager. I was 17, I think, and my mother and brother had gone away, so I was at home on my own.
Yeah.
And I got Dracula out of the Bram Stoker's Dracula out of the library, and it was great because I could just read all day without anyone saying anything about homework or chores or anything, eating biscuits and drinking tea and having a wonderful time.
That
But
sounds good.
I had to go to bed. At some point, I had to go to bed. So I went, and I could not go into the bathroom.
No.
Because in the bathroom there was a mirror. And this, for me, the worst part of the scariest thing in Dracula is when he's behind Jonathan Harker, who's shaving, and he can't see him. He can hear him, and he can't see him.
Yeah.
And I thought, they could be behind me, and I wouldn't be able to see him in the mirror. And by the time I turned around, he'd be behind the airing cupboard. So that was not a comforting thought. So I phoned my friend. I lived in Solihull, she lived in Sheldon, and I told her, and I said, "Can I come and stay with you?" And she said no. But her mum said, "Who's that on the phone? Celia." She scared herself reading a stupid book, and she said, "No, of course she can come over." So I pedalled all the way across Solihull to Sheldon,
Yeah.
about 4 miles on my bike in the pitch dark. It's like midnight. And I wasn't scared at all, but I was scared of the mirror in the bathroom. So I remembered that. I thought, I've got to get that feeling, like, that there's something could be there. It's crazy. It's not going to be there, but it might be. It just might be.
Oh, we're all going to have nightmares tonight, Celia.
That's the idea, surely.
I've just seen a question that Dawn put in the thing. It should come up. If you had to pick one of your favourite novel that you've written, what would it be?
Oh, well, I always have the same answer to that. I cannot choose between them because they're almost like children. If I chose any of them, there's a lot of them now, but if I chose any of them, the other books would be upset, and I don't know what would happen then.
I like that answer. Oh dear. Teddy, who we were talking about you earlier, Teddy. About I've mentioned to Celia that that Celia might have been your mum's teacher. But he said mirrors are very scary. I blame. Look, they're trying to get me to say it. I can't say poltergeist properly, and they always try and get me to say it. So yeah. So I blame poltergeist. I said it. Yes. It's one of them words that I've always said it wrong since I was younger, and it's just stuck. Carla's put, I always wanted to read Dracula, and about 4 years ago I decided, you know what, I'm going to read it in Transylvania.
Oh, wow.
So I took my daughter, who was 2 at the time. Best thing I ever did. That's amazing.
It's amazing. I've never been to Transylvania. I'd love to go. I really would.
Yeah.
It's
Oh.
so scary when he's, they're in that, what I love about those, like Dracula, is that he's in the coach and he's going to the Dracula's castle, and in the village they'll go, "I wouldn't go there if I was you," and they always go, and
they just ignore everything.
And he invites him in, and I love the little details like that, because when I was writing, I read a lot of things about vampires, obviously, as you do. And in fact, I went to the library and I had a list that then the internet was infancy, if it was in existence. So I had to get library books, and that you could order them from the library. And they were quite obscure, some of them, history of vampires and vampirism and things. And so I gave the librarian this list of books, and she said, "Do you mind telling me why you want these books?" Well, because I'm a vampire, what do you think?
That's the best answer.
Yeah, I said, oh, I'm a writer and I'm researching vampires. And, oh, all right then, very well. And she
I
had to
like
walk
how
with
she
it.
was just like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, she was very well. And it's great. There's a great deal of interesting lore about vampires. And, again, when I was talking in schools, as soon as I start on about vampires, we are there. We are there.
Yeah.
We are as one because they know a ton of stuff. I know a ton of stuff. I know things they don't know. They know things I don't know. So we can have a long discussion about vampires and vampirism.
I'd love a good vampire book.
Yeah, me
My friend,
too.
my friend Amy McCall wrote Mina and the Undead, and that's brilliant. Set in the 90s, vampires, like a mystery to solve. It's really, really good. And anything to do with vampires, I'm sold every time. Every time.
Well, my daughter and I were big fans of Buffy the Vampire
Oh,
Slayer.
yes.
Yeah, we used to watch that
Yeah.
together. Yeah, she did
Yeah.
share my taste and interest in horror for quite a long time.
So is that how Blood Sinister came about then? So just through your love of
Yeah, yeah,
vampires and
yeah. I
things?
just decided I wanted to write a book about a vampire.
Yeah.
So that's how it
Yeah.
started.
Yeah.
I just
Oh.
wanted to, I just thought, and I remembered, reading Dracula, and to start with, I wanted to write it like Dracula, because Dracula is actually not a straightforward narrative. It's all letters and diaries and things put together, which I thought was very interesting, like narrative structure. But I didn't. In the end, I just used a diary. I used a modern character and a diary, and the diary belongs to her great great grandmother, and she's reading about her. She's reading about, and she starts to read the diary, and obviously it's obvious to, because what I thought was like, if anybody was living before the 1890s when Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, they wouldn't know. Everybody now, there's so many things that obvious it's a vampire, but if it was before that, they wouldn't know. They wouldn't. He could be in. It's like full total vampire. Teeth, like cloak, hat. They still wouldn't know it was a vampire.
Yeah, you wouldn't. No,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Deathly pale, only comes out at night. All the obvious things they wouldn't know because they hadn't read Bram Stoker. And Bram Stoker's Dracula is the kind of the basic text, because he collected all the stories from people that and there was, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he had travelled in Eastern Europe, and he came back with all these stories and told him, and that's how he created the character of Dracula. So they wouldn't know anything about it. So I thought, well, you could have somebody in 1848 or 9 or something. In fact, I think I kind of found out when Jack the Ripper was about and attached it to Jack the Ripper. Why not?
Yeah.
And in the diary, this girl there's a man comes to stay. Her father's a doctor. He is a handsome young man with some sort of mysterious blood condition. He can't go out in the daytime. He's got funny teeth. Everything. He's got funny teeth. Everything. He's a vampire. It's screaming he's a vampire. But she doesn't know because she hadn't read Dracula. So, but the girl now reading it knows immediately he's a vampire. But she's not reading a novel. She's reading a diary. It's true. So, that is how that book works.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. Like, you don't think of things like that. Like, what would you do before these things came out?
Exactly. Just don't know.
Yeah.
So that's how the book works. And I had to think of a job for a modern vampire. So I thought a doctor. Doctors, access to blood.
Yeah.
See, like,
Constant access.
Constant snacking, yeah.
Teddy put, my mum went to Tudor Grange School. I was brought up in
Oh,
Solihull.
right. Well, I went to Tudor Grange. I was I'm a graduate of Tudor Grange, my old school. So yeah,
Oh,
your mum.
amazing. So you couldn't pick a favourite book baby out of all the babies, but what's your favourite genre to write in? Like, is it horror?
Um,
Would you go back to horror?
I do like horror, but what I guess I don't know. I do. I mean, as you said, I change genre a lot. Um,
Mm.
I'm not. I don't ever write in one particular. Well, I can. I start writing in say historical, and then I decide something happens. It's always. My books are always driven by ideas, by something, or
Mm.
by something I see or something I hear. You know, if I hadn't gone to see Bram Stoker's, if I hadn't gone to see Dracula, I wouldn't
Mm.
have thought, oh, I want to write a book about a vampire, and I'd probably never have written any of these books. So it's yeah, I don't know. I kind of say to myself, no, I'm not going to do any more supernatural, nothing like that. And then I have an idea and think, oh, don't know, hang about a bit. You could do, and yeah. So I don't know. Horror. I think what I learned from writing horror, I put into all the books. There's
Yeah.
always something creepy and something scary, and I know how to do that. And I learned that when I was writing the Point Horror book. So really good educator. Anne Finnis was a brilliant editor, and she was one. You got to have cliffhangers. End of each chapter, a cliffhanger, and I've been told don't have those. Like, no, it's like no. She said do that. You got to put them in. And so after that, when I was writing the other books that weren't horror stories, I always put cliffhangers in. And the editor, hey, it's really good the way you get people going on to the next chapter. Yeah, it's got a cliffhanger.
Oh,
So
thanks, Anne.
yeah, no thanks. She was brilliant.
Oh.
So I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't. I'd never say never about any of the genres I've written in. It
Mm.
just depends. I can get. You know, I used to write. I was writing purely historical, but now the book I have been working on that is now kind of with my agent is a totally different kind of book. It's a spy novel effectively, but
Oh.
it's a kind of it's retired spies, like the Thursday Morning Murder Club. It's
Oh, yeah.
like
Yeah.
that, but they're
Oh.
spies. So, but
Whoa.
it's not cozy. I can't do cozy. I never do
No.
cozy. So it's an uncozy spy book. It's like they're getting on, but they're still pretty effective, and they're looking back to a time when when they were much younger and they were actually active spies,
Mm.
and something happened then that has an impact now, and they've got to do stuff about it. So
Oh, wow. So
um,
is it set in present
yeah,
day then, is it? And then they're
yeah,
looking back.
present day, they're going back
Oh.
to the fall of the Berlin Wall is when the thing happened, which is
Oh.
a dangerous and weird time. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm kind of interested in that at the
Yeah.
moment, but I also um, I have an idea for a book set in the Second World War, but like its provisional title is The Bletchley Witches. So I don't know
Oh.
if any of your members are interested in witches and witchcraft, but
Definitely.
it's that kind of that area. It's that ballpark.
Oh.
So yeah, yeah, and
Oh, that sounds really good.
I've always been interested in in the supernatural and
Mm,
witchcraft and stuff like that. So
yeah.
yeah,
So
so
I suppose, like, even with the different genres that you've written in, like that horror element is
it's
still kind of there,
not there, yeah.
threaded
But
through, kind of
horror's
thing.
everywhere. It's not just and it can happen anywhere at any time, and I think that's the scary thing. That you think it's perfectly okay. You're walking home.
Mm,
It's okay. It's a bit dark, and then you hear footsteps behind you, and you're getting closer and closer and closer, and that's horror. That's fear, and that
mm,
could be in any book really,
yeah.
any
And
genre.
lots of people, Karen's put yes, please, witches. Speed write it, yes.
All right,
Guns put, oh my God, yes, witches, witches.
I'll let you know.
And Melina's put Bletchley plus witches and like a load of heart emojis.
Yeah,
Larissa, all about the witchiness. So yeah, we're definitely interested in
good
witches,
one.
Celia.
That's fantastic. I could pursue that one. Yeah.
And I just saw a question that Dawn had put up talking about witches. So Witch Child is one of her favourite books, and it was hugely influential for her own writing. So she said, can you just quickly talk about the process of writing and maybe what influenced the idea and the reception of
Which
it? Witch Child.
yeah, of course. So yeah, I Witch Child. There's different because it's not really she's a witch, or so the whole point of it is that it begins like I am Mary, I'm a witch, or so some would call me. So what I was interested in really was witch persecution, and how it started was I was reading a book and about real like real life magicians and witches and people who had actually not made up, they were real. And in it there was a picture of Matthew Hopkin, who was the witch finder general, with surrounded by his witches. It's a famous woodcut. And I suddenly started thinking, well, what if and all books start with what if. I always start with what if. What if there was a woman, like an older woman, and she's the healer and the midwife, and she has a niece or a granddaughter who is learning the trade. She's learning to heal. She's going to be a healer and a midwife. Following her, she's learning the herbs and everything. And a man like Matthew Hopkin comes to the village, and it is a shocking, like really shocking attack. So they take away the old lady, they march her up and down, they kill the rabbit, they kill the cat, they say they're familiars, they throw the old lady into the mill pond. If she floats, she's guilty. If she sinks, she's innocent, but she's dead anyway. And this girl is left on her own. What happens to her? And at the same time, because I was thinking more along the lines of actual, like this, what were witches? Could they did they fly around on broomsticks, or were they healers, or did they belong to a kind of long tradition, pagan tradition of maybe mother goddess, that they had their own belief, and they did have powers, but not like massive powers, but people believed they could turn into hares, that they could shapeshift. And I was thinking, where in the world were the people who believed in shape-shifting, healing? Some people had power that more than other people. And I thought Native American people would believe that, and they would see someone like that as a person of power, a seer, a really, really important person. And I thought it was really interesting that if she went to America, then she would be in a society where one lot of people would want to hang her, and the other lot of people would think that she was a person of power, and they would want her to be with them. So that's how Witch Child came about. So I had to get her I had to get her to America, and then I could follow the story.
Yeah.
And it's written like a diary, because the first editor I said I got this idea, and she said, "Oh, yeah, teenagers don't like historical fiction." So, okay, thank you for that. That encouragement. So I thought, how can I make it? And a diary is a way of getting very close to a reader. That you're confident, so you're reading someone's inner thoughts and feelings and things. You feel really close to them. So I thought, I'll write it like a diary, and then the diary will be discovered, and so then it will be published as this diary. And also I could account for the fact that there's big gaps in it, because I didn't want to write everything. So yes, so that's how it came about.
Yeah, and the reception of Witch Child was amazing. Like people loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was my kind of breakthrough novel, really.
Yeah,
I mean, I've
it's
written all these other
amazing.
books that people liked, but it tended to be kind of nichey. But which child had much a sort of universal appeal,
Mm.
and it became very popular. That's one of the ones that's most translated.
Yeah. No, definitely. And Dawn's put, Celia, I wonder if you've ever read Hiding from the Light by Barbara Erskine. I think I'm saying that right. Another amazing witchy novel that features Hopkins, etc.
No, I haven't read that.
Ah,
I haven't read that one.
sounds quite good. So we've got Halloween coming up. Do you have any like Halloween traditions, or do you do anything on Halloween?
No, I'm extremely boring, really. I might write all this stuff, but I don't actually do much. Maybe get a pumpkin. Do a bit pumpkin carving, but I'm useless. I mean that I'm absolutely terrible at carving pumpkins. My daughter,
I'm really bad.
so mine always look. They do look terrifying, really, because they're all wonky with like eyes over here, mouth like that. So yeah, I quite like I like to put a pumpkin in the. I like the fact that it's like a kind of. I like the Walpurgis night aspects of it. I like the All Hallows Nacht, that it's like it is the one of the nights where the veil between the worlds is thick, and the spirits can move through, and that it's a pagan, really a pagan festival. I like pagan festival. Samhain, it's Samhain, isn't it? It's the Celtic festival of renewal, and I love that. I celebrate that.
Yeah.
Really. So yes, a pumpkin or a candle in the window. I'm good with that.
No, that sounds good to me. And what's something that we've learned lots about you tonight, Celia, but what is something that readers or anyone watching back this chat might be surprised to find out about you? We know you're super spooky and we're going to have nightmares tonight. But what would, have you got any like surprising facts that people wouldn't think?
I always dread this question because I can't think of anything. I think the surprising thing is how normal I am and ordinary, really.
Normal? No, I'm joking.
Well, I do yoga.
Okay.
I practice a particular branch of yoga called Kundalini yoga, which is a bit weird. It's about releasing the Kundalini energy, which is like a spiraling serpent within you. You do these.
See, that's interesting.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I do that. I do.
Oh, I like that.
I do that. At the moment I'm doing a practice every morning, because I find it energizes me for the day. And I'm left-handed. That's the other thing.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's how I sort of blood sinister. You see, left-handed blood. That's you think it's not good. So yeah,
that's true. And if there's any aspiring writers in the chat or watching the chat back, like what advice would you give them if they wanted to write horror or maybe slip into any other genres? What advice would you give?
Well, I think I've got various bits of advice about this. One piece of advice is a Stephen King book, and King of Horror. We cannot, nobody can even talk about it without acknowledging a debt to him. And I read a lot of his early books, and then I stopped when I kind of couldn't take anymore, really. And I have read some more of it recently. I mean, his more recent books. And I think he wrote a book about writing called On Writing, and that is really good advice. All of it is brilliant, and he's really good on horror because and his grades of horror are still apply. I think so. You've got the highest of them is, I think the highest is terror. If you can terrorize people, really terrorize them, then the next step down is horrifying people, and then he's got gross out. If that totally fails, you gross people out. If you can do that, then you're there. Yeah.
Oh, love it. I've definitely read some gross out novels in my time.
But that's the easy. it's the easier to do. The other two things are much more difficult, but they're the things that stick in people's minds, and you know, the things that you come back to you, and when you're, you know, and make you uneasy when you're visiting a weird place, or it's quiet or it's dark, and you remember like Salem's Lot, or you know, one of the really, and I thought it was the scariest thing I've ever read. I really did.
Yeah, I think that was
Absolutely
probably one of my first Stephen King's.
He can really ramp it up. So yeah, if you want to write horror, read Stephen King, and you'll learn how to do it. If you look at how he does it and you follow that, then you can't go wrong, really.
Yeah, no, that sounds good advice. I do dabble a little bit writing myself, but not like a lot. But I'm definitely would be interested to read that anyway, just to see, like, I like to understand like how people write horror, or you know, why they write horror and things like that. Just the psychological stuff behind it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called On Writing, but if you look him up on Amazon, you'll find all his novels. And it's really, I mean, it's very good advice on any writer. You know, it's good advice for any writer, whatever the writing, whatever.
Oh no, definitely. And there was a few fellow lefties in the chat, like left-handed, and and Sharon put, the nuns at my school forced me to write with my right hand, so now I can alternate between hands. That's amazing.
That's good. I mean, they would have done that at my school if they'd been able to, but I'm extremely left-handed, so they couldn't make me. I mean, I think when my brother was like that, my brother was left-handed naturally, and they made him write with his right hand, and it only affected him quite seriously. And in my school, they just put all the left-handed people, you know, you have tables when like year 2 or something, they put all the left-handed people on one table. And we all had to have blue pencils. Everyone else had red pencils. But the blue table was much more interesting than any of the other tables, because it was just a real mix of kids. And yeah, it was great. I got some really good friends off that. Boys who are useful to know, you know, like tough
for novels.
Yeah, I think one of them might have been Billy and ended up as Billy and the Vanished, actually.
I love this. I think we all want to know. I was talking to Eddie May about one of the characters, Fraser from The Vanish, and we was like, oh, he seems like, if I was a teen, like he'd be like the hot boy. Kind of gave me Christian Slater vibes a little bit.
Yeah, I think he might have had he might have quite a Christian Slater vibe, because I think I'd you know, my daughter was a big fan of Christian Slater, and I think we'd watch Mean Girl film that he's in.
Yeah,
you know, the film that he's in,
the Heathers.
Heathers. Yeah, I think I think I'm pretty sure I've watched that, actually.
Yeah, it definitely gave me those vibes. Navissa's put Carrie is utterly chilling. So yeah, Carrie, Stephen King.
It's one of the great horror stories of all. Yeah.
And Dawn's put so as in Stephen King reads the audiobook version of On Writing, which is amazing.
Yeah, well, that's good to know.
Yeah. Yeah, Karen's put, everyone's a big fan of Christian Slater. Yes, always. Oh, but Celia, thank you so much for joining us. I could just talk to you forever. And this has been like,
been a great
honestly, such a huge honour for me, because I've been such a fan for years, and like we've been talking about chatting horror, and I thought it's the perfect time, October, spooky season.
Yeah, coming up to Halloween.
Yeah. But no, it's been fantastic, and you have to come and join us again, and we'll have another chat at some point. Yeah. Oh, but thank you, Celia, and thank you to everyone who's sent questions or in the chat as well. Everyone's saying thank you, Celia.
Thanks everyone for coming along and tuning in, and and asking such brilliant questions. And you go and read my books.
Yeah, no Oh,
all I can say.
definitely.
Yeah.
I'm going to go further back now and find that that one you mentioned earlier, and yeah, I'm just going to read all the Celia books now.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Oh, thanks, Celia. Thanks,
It's a
guys.
pleasure, real
I'll
pleasure.
speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Lovely to
Thank
see
you.
you.
And you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.